Hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about stuff. I don't know why there was a pause there. It made it seem more dramatic. So you've seen what's been going on in the cryptocurrency space, especially over the course of the last 3 months. This seems to be the number that we're getting from everywhere if you haven't been paying attention. The sideways movements, the consolidations, the downward pressure that we've seen has been going on for officially 3 months. For some reason, it doesn't seem that long, at least to me. Maybe I'm just in a different headspace or something right now. We are, without having to, whatever. We are currently witnessing what I believe is the wealth transfer. So a lot of people and a lot of other articles as well over the last 2 or 3 weeks have been making note of the idea of what the wealth transfer is. I'm not sure if we went over here together to talk about it. The idea is that as the baby boomer generation gets older and eventually at some point passes on, they will be basically allocating a huge portion of their wealth and or handing it over to the generation that came after them. What I think a lot of people keep missing, and I think it's a very crucial point at least in the cryptocurrency space. I don't want to say within finance, but I want to say definitely within crypto and within Bitcoin, is that we're witnessing a wealth transfer, but it's happening in a very different way. And I wish more people spoke about it. I mean, it's not the most pertinent thing in the entire world, but the news today made me realize this kind of all over again. The news story is that I believe, despite where prices are right now, 85% of holders are in profit. That's the first batch of news. The second batch of news is that these holders of Bitcoin who are, in profit, we have now reached over 1 million addresses that have over one entire Bitcoin. The significance, of course, there being astronomical, as one of the numbers that we are constantly bombarded with as far as Bitcoin and cryptocurrency adoption has to do with the idea of how many people are in crypto, how many people are in Bitcoin, how many people own this asset that is incredibly scarce. So when you get to the idea of the numbers we've heard before being between 50 to 100 million people within the Bitcoin market space, and then you whittle it down to that 1 million addresses are holding over an entire Bitcoin, it shows the adoption level has increased. And it's also good for decentralization. I wish it was a little bit better. As I always say before, I think it's a bit of a shame that we have a situation where we have one company who'll have hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin that should be spread to people all around the world. But alas, we're not going to get into that actual discussion. A lot of these addresses as well, if you didn't get the hint, are also holding more than one Bitcoin. It's any metric. If you have a Bitcoin or above, it's now over 1 million addresses. When I talk about, so I'm going to try and throw out as many things as I can. It's all jumbled up in my head. It will spill out at some point. When you talk about the actual transfer of wealth, and I don't even think it's really a transfer anymore. I think it's more like a relative swap. The idea of the traditional wealth transfer is that trillions and trillions of dollars will pass from boomers to, is it Gen X, I think, came after them, and then it'll go to millennials, and it kind of topples down. But what people never talk about is that money tends to stay in the family. There isn't a real transfer of wealth because that family was already wealthy, already had money. And a lot of the studies, especially if you read them, the ones that come from banks and stuff like that tend to typically have the idea of this, they make it seem as if this new generation will come into this money and they won't know what to do with it. What do I do with these millions of dollars that my family had for the last 4 or 5 generations? They're going to basically do the exact same thing. Within crypto, it's slightly different because we have a brand new monetary form, a literal Bitcoin monetary policy. But where this money could transfer over to normal everyday people, it's kind of just staying within the rich mix. When you talk about a lot of the people in crypto, the higher ups, the more popular people, if you will, are already millionaires, multimillionaires, and billionaires. And then you hear about their levels of accumulation. It's not a wealth transfer so much as like they're transferring it back to themselves, but in another form, going from US dollars into Bitcoin. What we are seeing is that there are a lot of people who have gotten rich, wealthy, have made money off of the cryptocurrency space. It feels like it's too few people, though. So while we tend to celebrate a lot of times these news stories about these rich people or these normal people who made money in Bitcoin, this person put in $500 and look, he just bought a house, those kinds of things, these stories could be multiplied. But we are stuck in a really weird position right now where a lot of people within the cryptocurrency space, within economics, are constantly focusing on the movements and awesomeness of rich people. You understand what I'm saying? So, like for instance, like the thing like with the guy from Dell. I'm sure we must have spoken about that. For those of you who didn't see it, the guy I'm pretty sure it's Dell Computers. I don't know like anyone else named Dell. I think he retweeted the Cookie Monster holding a Bitcoin. I forgot what it was. And everyone was, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, Cookie Monster Bitcoin. Like excited for this guy to get into the Bitcoin market because they assumed that he would like buy them up and move prices, which then gets us back into that same exact corner where we were before as far as like centralization and rich people already holding everything. So when you hear the news that that over 1 million wallets hold at least one Bitcoin, it's quite significant. But the truth of the matter actually is that these are rich people. Now understand, we're in a very peculiar moment in history. Unemployment isn't at record highs, but it's doing absolutely, it's egregious. It's terrible right now. Job loss claims are skyrocketing. The amount of people who have like savings or anything to put into a market and or to save is also quite low. The really famous one, less than 25% of Americans have no. What is it? No, it's more than 25% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. If there was an emergency and they needed to come up with $1,000, they could not do so. And I think it was something along the lines of like 75% of Americans could not come up with $5,000, or like they it's not an option. Like they cannot find $5,000 anywhere, asking other people or otherwise. And we see this new thing that comes along that kind of, it doesn't promise, Bitcoin hasn't promised anything, but we see that we have a new economic system where normal people could get into it and also benefit from its movements and stuff like that as well, and how big it's going to get and all the attention that's surrounding it. But then we have just the rich people who are mainly buying it. You have some normal people who are buying Bitcoin who see the long-term growth in the actual market. But then you have several billion other people who literally can't afford groceries sometimes. You get what I'm saying? We're in a really weird position. Because what happens, humor me. What happens if Bitcoin does go to $100 million? Humor me. Let's say it's the year 2049. Bitcoin's at $89 million per coin. If someone had 1 million Satoshis, that'd be 8.9 million, that'd be 890,000 US dollar equivalent. How life-changing would that be for so many people out there? But these people now don't have an opportunity to even get in the market because they don't have the money because of the economic system that they're supposed to be trying to get away from. The current economic system has squeezed them to the point where they literally don't have enough money to be able to invest in something freely that could help them economically in the future. It's weird to think about. So a lot of times years ago, this was, I don't want to say like more popular news, but years ago, we used to have a lot of conversations in the crypto space about like who has Bitcoin, how much Bitcoin is allocated, Bitcoin being smoothed out. Even like when we have the news recently, for those of you who missed it, we had like terrifyingly shocking news, which wasn't at all, that the US government and German government had sold off a couple $1 million worth of Bitcoin. The market fell because everyone's used to being afraid and terrified and telling other people to be afraid and terrified, which is also absolute nonsense because of the levels of liquidity that Bitcoin have. It wouldn't have any actual effect on the price, but it's actually a good thing. You don't want the government having all the Bitcoin the same way that they hold all the dollars and the euros and the yen. You want them to get rid of it so that it can go back onto the market so that people who need it around the world can benefit from it. The way that Bitcoin succeeds is not from 11 ETFs holding 3 million Bitcoin. That's literally the opposite of what we want. It is the current system that we have that we're trying to get away from. You benefit from it by, and I think they only sold a couple hundred Bitcoin. It was something nonsensical. If those were fractionalized and everyone bought 1 million Satoshi, that is, what is that? 40,000 people who would be able to then own some kind of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin succeeds, these people also succeed. You understand? I'm sure you do. So I am still a gigantic advocate for letting other people know about the space, know about what's going on. But I think we've squeezed ourselves into a situation where people are so obsessed with what rich people are doing with the space, how much money they can bring into the space, and we're letting them once again control the entire market the same way that they did since forever. So we're seeing adoption rise. We will, and we're also, in side note, we're seeing a lot of people being squeezed out of the market. This is, once again, side note kind of thing. If you look at the actual charts, the only people who are selling, even if there's an outflow of an ETF, it shouldn't or wouldn't have an actual mega effect on the price, especially as we keep seeing whales buying like 8 times as much as being sold by the ETFs. But when you look at from analytics companies like Glassnode or Sentiment, the people who are selling are like the short-term holders, the people who just got into the market, who were expecting Bitcoin to do a 3 or 4x, and then they were also going to leave. But there's no longevity in their investment goals. It's entering the market, making a quick amount of money, and then leaving. And these are the people who would benefit from Bitcoin the most, but they keep leaving the market, selling their coins onto a crypto exchange. And then those coins are bought up by their addresses out there who are buying 100, 200, and 300 Bitcoin every single day. Every single day. We just had news about another company who just bought another 11,000 Bitcoin. So unless something is done, unless more people figure this out and learn about it, once again, teach people about it. Teach people about the space. Steer them away from garbage coins. Steer them away from these meme coins. And let them understand like what this actually means and like what's happening in front of us. Because if not, in 2049, we're going to live in a world where the people who have these addresses will be holding the majority of the Bitcoin. And I keep seeing people writing in the comment section or on Twitter being like, well, you're making it seem like we can't buy Satoshis. And it's like, yeah, you'll be able to buy 12,000 Satoshis because that's all that you'll be able to afford. You won't be able to, like, these buying opportunities that we have right now won't last forever. And you keep thinking that there's not a difference between owning a tenth, a half, or a full coin compared to being like, well, someone can buy 5,000 Satoshis in the future. Compare $100 million to $5,000. We get back in the same system as we were anyway. I'm an advocate for like actual decentralization and like, financial equality around the world so that we all succeed as opposed to just Michael Saylor, the guy from Dell, the guy from BlackRock. I remember seeing something online where people were like, once again, super excited about the whole BlackRock thing. But I was like, Larry Fink is already a billionaire, right? Like he doesn't need Bitcoin. Yeah. Officially over 1 million wallet addresses are holding an entire coin. That number is going to continue because rich people continue to buy. They have not stopped. If you've been watching this channel for the last couple of years, they keep buying all the time. They're not going to stop. They have no intention. They have no reason to stop. If this thing ends up going to $1 million, $2 million, $5.7 million per coin, they're getting it at a bargain right now. So, yeah. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.